Okay, so today we're going to cover MigrationFX, just give you an overview of it. This is really an update based on some extra functionality that's been added to the product and making available. And it's also quite topical at the moment because of some kind of pre-announcement information about Communication Manager 14, which means people need to kind of start making a bit of planning ahead of time before they upgrade. In order to get all the new handsets that they want to update out there. Today we also have Mandeep and Padma from Cisco from the Endpoint Business Unit. So they're going to cover a little bit of information on the Migration Incentive Program. So it's great that they'll be able to join. Quick rundown on the agenda. So just the usual kind of house rules, quick refresher on who we are, UnifiedFX. Then summarize the problem, the solution, and the operation of the solution. Talk about some of the main highlights of MigrationFX and the ways that you can use it, some of the scenarios. Touch on the requirements of using MigrationFX, and a little bit of detail on the actual XML phone service, which is one of the key things that drives the functionality actually. Then we'll go into a little bit more detail of some of the functionality. So that's migration profiles. That's something that we added that allows you to do things beyond just migrating your phone, some kind of things that some people had to do as a post-migration step, some extra updates they had to do on the phone after it migrated for certain situations. We found a way to incorporate that as part of the migration, and migration profiles allow you to do that. It's nothing too detailed, but just to talk about it and what it can do. We've got a little bit of information on troubleshooting. Then we'll talk about the new functionality that we've currently added and some new functionality that's on our roadmap, which is probably worth sharing just to give you a heads up of where we're going with the product. Then we'll touch briefly on Communication Manager 14 and the phone deprecation that's been introduced there. In terms of a demo, we've just got a short video we're going to show of the extensibility device being converted. It's really not that interesting because it looks like just a normal phone being swapped, but technically it's a device profile that's being swapped over. So we'll discuss the detail of that as best we can. And then we'll talk about how to get MigrationFX. We provide it available for free as a lab edition for trial and testing. And if submitted suitably as part of the MIP program, training at 100 or more phones, you can also get it for free too, and get some detail on that. At any point, you can ask questions and stuff too. If you're going to ask questions, please use the Q&A panel. Got a few people on, panelists on today to answer questions, which is good. We might share a video in one or two different ways today. We'll see how it works out. If there's any issues, I've got a fallback plan, which is using a little share video via WebEx, and that would require to use this expand video view. I don't think we'll need that today. I think it will play quite well out of the PowerPoint, but we'll see how it goes. In terms of UnifiedFX itself, we are a Cisco preferred solution partner, and we have three main products. Just quickly summarize those. So we have PhoneView, that's been out for quite a long time. It's the original product, and it's been used by literally millions of Cisco phones, are used to manage literally millions of Cisco phones throughout the world. We've got thousands of customers that use that on a daily basis. Just makes it really, really easy to work with your test phones remotely. But the great thing is we updated that recently in version 7, which we brought out in December, and that allows you to work with soft phones as well and a whole bunch of new stuff. So if you've got any interest in that stuff, just drop us an email and we can share all the good new features that we've introduced recently in the PhoneView side of things. WallboardFX, that's a nice simple browser-based wallboard for UCCX, just really simple to install, administer, and easy to use. That's the kind of main criteria. There's no plugins, so you can run it on literally anything, including smart TVs, etc. And the way we architected it, it's incredibly fast. It's milliseconds from something happening in the contact center to the display being updated. So you kind of have to see it to to believe it, so to speak, about how fast it is. A recent update in the wallboard front is it's now Cisco compatible as well. We put it through IDT testing end of last year, so that's all good. And then finally, MigrationFX was obviously the focus of today's session. Basically, we come up with a mechanism which, from our marketing term, we call zero touch, which makes it incredibly simple to replace an old phone with a new phone. Literally, you unplug the old phone and plug in the new phone, and everything just happens magically, as you'll hopefully see in the demo shortly. But we actually realised how innovative that was, so we applied for a patent for that concept. And the great thing is we got that confirmed. So it just kind of rubber stamps the fact that it's a novel concept, the way we managed to put that together. There's a couple of other aspects to MigrationFX, which I'll maybe not go into labour too much because I'm going to cover it a little second, but there's other things where you can convert DX endpoints and provision handsets as well, kind of equivalent to Cisco's TAPS functionality, but a little bit simpler. So anyway, quick rundown on what we have. In terms of the problem that we're aiming to solve, really when you're swapping phones out, old phones for new, etc., maybe even an RMA situation, there can be quite a lot of work involved, especially if you're doing a large trade-in, and you're swapping several thousand phones. That can be quite a costly and complex exercise from a logistics perspective, manpower, engineering, services cost. That's things where you have to get engineers to site. You've got quite a lot of complex phone configurations you have to update. Doing an ad hoc one-on-one is not too bad. It might take you, half an hour per phone or something, but there's obviously errors and things that can happen there. But if you're doing these things en masse, you then usually have to coordinate MAC addresses and specific phone specific locations and kind of make sure you do all that correctly and consistently. It's a lot of programming, so it can take quite a lot of effort, never mind the logistics. But the key thing is all that complexity is being completely eliminated just using MigrationFX, and obviously I'll tell you how it does it. In terms of the high-level simple form of the solution, you just can't get any easier. You as an administrator, just distribute the new phones out to site. They can be literally brand new handsets straight out the box in most situations. The end user themselves just unpackages that phone and basically takes away the old phone, unplugging the network cable, and using that same network cable plugs in that new handset. And that quite literally is all that's required. Software takes care of everything else after that. And the way that works is through a couple of parts. So one side of it is there's data synchronization that's happening continually underneath the hood. So in this diagram, we have our MigrationFX software running on a server instance here, and it's integrated with Communication Manager, and it's also talking to the Cisco IP phones directly. And those big red arrows represent the data synchronization that we perform. So the arrow number 1, as such, synchronizes phone details from Communication Manager. Now, at the bottom, there's 2 bullet points there. So there's 2 types of cluster synchronization. There's an update and a refresh. The update's like a full list of devices. We generally recommend a default of about 30 minutes on that, but you can go higher. In fact, the initial value is higher, but sometimes you've got going a little bit lower. 30 is the kind of default we recommend. And what that will do is periodically pull an entire list of devices down, and that lets you know if things are deleted and things like that. However, because this works with phones that are auto-registered, just don't have to be auto-registered phones, but that's quite a common situation. We need to find out quite quickly if a new phone is added or changed somehow. So we have a incremental refresh mechanism as part of that. And basically by default, we recommend that to be set to about 1 minute. And every single minute, if that's what you set it to, it will just look for changes. But it's a very efficient query. If there's no changes, there's no data. So, it's a very light request from that perspective. And that just means that as efficiently as possible, the information that we store within MigrationFX is as close as sensibly possible to Communication Manager. Even if you're just plugging a brand new device in, we'll know about it really quickly. The system will know about it really quickly. Then arrow number 2, coming from the IP phone there, this is a second incremental step that happens. And what this is we query the phone's web page. So that's a prerequisite for that step to occur. And what happens is we gather topology data from the phone, specifically CDP and LLDP data from the phone's web server, and that would include the switch and the switch port that the phone's plugged into. Now, typically that's kind of every 30 minutes as well. We recommend that to run by, but again, it could be faster or slower depending on what you're planning to do. But what that means is with those two kind of data feeds inside MigrationFX, it kind of knows everything it needs to know about the devices on Call Manager, including brand new phones, and it also knows everything about where they are on the network, and it can make good use of that information. Excuse me. And in terms of actually using the software to perform a migration, the first step is obviously swapping that old phone for you. So the end user, for example, would do that. And what typically happens when that new phone gets plugged in is we launch an idle URL on that phone. Doesn't have to be an idle URL, there can be other ways to get out there, but that's the most typical way to do it. And that XML phone service that's hosted from MigrationFX is the kind of heart of how this works. And what it triggers is a topology query, because when you plug that new phone in and it opens up that XML service, we now know about that phone, through that request. We can then query that data that we've been continually updating, the topology information, and that allows us to locate the old phone automatically, because we can use that common piece of information, which is the switch and switch port that the phone's plugged into, because that's the same between those two devices, because it's using the same cable, obviously. And that means we can then prompt the user, once we've identified that old phone through that request, and ask them, do you want to, complete this migration? Obviously, if they say yes, we then perform all the necessary operations on Communication Manager to, copy all that data over from one phone to the other. And I'll obviously go over some detail about what that data is like. That's the heart of it. Now, some of the kind of main points to note about MigrationFX I've got on this slide here. By design, we made it really quick and simple to install. You can, if you know what you're doing and everything's all available to you, you can set it up quite easily in 10 minutes. It's also published and available on Cisco dCloud. If you just search for the word MigrationFX when you're in the dCloud portal, that'll help you find the relevant instance that it's embedded into, and you can do it there. It supports migration and provision scenarios. So initially, we created this software on request of Cisco to make it really easy to swap old phones for new. But what we also realized is with a little enhancement, we could also handle provision scenarios. So basically, a brand new phone, greenfield site, you're not replacing an old phone, you're just plugging a brand new phone into the network. So it doesn't have any previous information, obviously, from the old phone. It's just a brand new handset. But if you've done a BAT import of what that phone's configuration should be, but with a dummy MAC address, what you can then do with the XML service is you can find that phone using its extension number and associate it with the kind of batted in dummy kind of phone, dummy MAC address BAT device. You can associate that with a new phone. We convert that, copy that over, and then that allows you to roll out that new handset. It's basically the same thing the way Cisco's taps feature works, but it's a little bit more flexible, a little bit simpler because of the XML service. We've tested and used and support superclusters. So we've got a few customers now that are incredibly large systems that used MigrationFX. Very support for HTTPS. There's obviously a number of customers where that's important, that from a web communication point of view, it's all restricted to encrypted communication, and we made sure we cover TLS 1.2 because that's obviously, as security standards move forward, you have to keep up to date. So that's something we had to make sure we covered. Some important things about the migration itself, we just make sure everything's seamless from a data perspective, and that includes maintaining all the user associations and phone related configuration. There's a lot of time and effort that's put into that mechanic effectively. So it's not just the kind of clever trick about maintaining topology data. It's kind of half the value from MigrationFX. The other half is the kind of effort and intellectual property we put into maintaining all that consistency of data. Part of that is we come up with a strategy that allows us to migrate phone button templates as well. So we can just take the existing template and create a new template with a new model and copy all the buttons over, etc. You can actually customize and control that as well if need be. Another key thing is it's not always possible to do zero touch because for zero touch to work, we have to get access to the phone's web server, but there's many occasions where the phone's web server is not available, either for security reasons or just general network reasons possibly. And if that's the case, then our software automatically falls back and uses the extension number instead, so you can find the old phone using its phone number, basically. It's nice and simple. Got a little bit more detail on that in a minute. So you don't have to use the phone's web server. That's just the preferred way to do it, but it's not mandatory. We added in, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, the ability to convert DX endpoints. So that's when you're moving from Android to CE operating system. So we did that again on request of Cisco as an enhancement to the software. And something that we did, because it's built on the same platform, is we also included a free trial of PhoneFX. That's the ability to remotely control a phone, press buttons on it, see what it's doing, make phone calls, etc. This is a nice and easy and simple to use single phone remote control, so you can play around with that in a trial format. Now, some of the scenarios that you can use MigrationFX for, and these questions come up every now and again, is we do support and you can work with sidecars. So if you have one or more sidecars on your old phone, some 7914 sidecars, for example, and then you've got a 8800 series with the relevant key expansion modules, if you set up your phone templates accordingly, we will take care of the module configuration to make sure the new handset has those key entry modules configured on it. And it's really nice. That means that you can have 20, 30 lines or more on the old handset spread across all these buttons. You take it away, you plug in the new handset with all the sidecars plugged in, and it lights up like a Christmas tree with all that data mapped over. Saves a lot of hassle. Some other scenarios is sometimes when people perform these migrations, they might want to consolidate button templates or at least modify their button layouts, because maybe over time, they've made some tweaks and changes, they've maybe got more button templates than they really want to have out there, where you can simplify it, rationalize it. You can do that as well. There's techniques that we have as part of the migration profile capability that allows you to kind of do some of that kind of post-processing effort as part of the migration. We've had some customers as well that want to migrate phones between sites, which confuses a little bit, to be honest, at the beginning. But basically, they bought a whole bunch or for a few customers, basically, they bought a whole bunch of new handsets as part of the cost of a new building move, which is quite a good way to budget, actually. And what they wanted was to, as part of the fit out for the new building, for the people who were going to move into those offices, they could basically roll out their handsets and pre-provision and configure all the phones with, replica configuration, etc., but on the new models, obviously. And then all the user would have to do would just be turn up on that new site and everything just works, and eventually they'll clear out the old phones, the old site, etc. later. So in order to do that, in some occasions, what you would typically have to do is update the device profile, because the phone on the old site and the phone on the new site might have a different call routing plan and some other settings, etc., and that's usually keyed upon the device pool. So you're able to update that dynamically as part of the phone migration as well. There's some other things in there that are handy. You can choose to keep the old phone for manual deletion. You can flag it actually with a little extra tag on the description to identify it easily. So by default, we keep the old phone, but if you want, you can delete it and kind of clean up devices literally immediately as you go, or you can wait a little bit longer and delete them later. It's your choice. Also works with secure clusters. You still have to register the new handsets using whatever your existing procedure is, to get those new devices on the network. But once those new devices are initially provisioned with an anonymous configuration, they don't have to have the user's configuration, just need to be able to have an extension of some kind that gets them online. You can then ship them out to users, swap them as normal, and everything will get taken care of. And then the new functionality, which is the main reason for holding this session today to introduce it, is the ability to migrate extensionability device profiles as well. So it's something we just added in the last kind of 3 months roughly. We've had 1 or 2 clients using it, so it's still at beta level, but it's been testing very well. So if you do want to try out that new capability, you just need to drop us an email. So it's just the usual sales@unifiedfx.com, and we can hook you up with that new copy of software, and you can give it a try. And I'll take you through the detail of how that works in a little minute. In terms of software requirements, it's a Windows-based application at the moment still. We actually are working to enable support for Linux at some point in the future, but you know that's not an urgent thing for us, but we have the technology, so to speak. But in the meantime, it's still Windows based. So therefore, it's based on the Microsoft.NET framework, so that's a requirement. It's got its own web server built in, so all you need to make available is a TCP port to host its built-in web server on. We defaulted to port 8181, but you can change that to anything you want at installation time. In terms of Communication Manager, it works on version 8.0 and above. We've been tested all the way through, etc., to the latest Communication Manager versions. It's all Cisco compatible, all that goodness. One thing about the core mechanic that we use is it actually uses an existing feature in Communication Manager, which is the phone migration back feature. That does a lot of the core kind of device migration, copying speed dial services and things like that, but we have a lot of extra logic on top of that that just fills in the gaps. Basically, there's a few limitations to that built-in feature that we take care of. As an example, we have a number of clients who have contact center users and contact center phones that they use, obviously, and they've been able to use MigrationFX to swap out those contact center phones, which obviously from a device configuration point of view are more complex because of the kind of UCX integration, etc., or CTI application integration, and all the relevant associations are maintained, so those applications just keep on working. So we've been really pleased with how successful that is, even in those tricky situations. There's typically no or minimal change required on CUCM. Obviously, you might need to install a device pack to support the new models, but not really from specifically our software's point of view. You don't need to upgrade. Just watch your license capacity, because sometimes, you know, if you've got keeping some of your old phones around, at least in CUCM configuration for a while, you know, you need to kind of have a little bit of a buffer possibly, unless you're quite quick on deleting them. These last 2 requirements are feature specific. So technically there's 3 ways to migrate a phone, and 2 of them, which are listed here, Zero Touch and Self-Service, have some prerequisites. As I touched on already, the Zero Touch mechanism, which is the fully automatic way, that requires the phone's web server to be enabled on all phones, old and new, so it can pull in that topology data. Some customers just enable that on a temporary basis, just as part of the migration project, and then once they're finished, they can turn it back off again. However, if you don't want to do that, you can use the search by extension. You can always use search by extension. That's your kind of go-to in all situations if it doesn't work out. What you can also do, we added this on request of Cisco as well, but to be fair, I think that's a bit of a Cisco thing. I've not seen many customers use this particular mechanism, but you can also do what's called self-service. With self-service, the XML service on the phone can ask for a username and password for the end user's own credentials, and if they successfully submit that, we can then look up from that user account and find their old phone associated with it, and that becomes the old phone, and then we can take it from there in terms of migrating it. But obviously, in order to use that, the user accounts would need to have some form of user association or owner assigned to the old device so we can discover it. As I say, the self-service isn't really used too much. The main one is Zero Touch, which is the prerequisite of the web server, but we can still migrate phones even without that. Excuse me. The phone service itself, that's the URL, and that's some things to consider about it. This really is the heart of how it works. And effectively, it's what starts the migration process. It's what alerts us to the phone being alive and on the network. It's what triggers the sequencing from a user interaction point of view, and it's how we obviously provide feedback to the user and ask them questions or give them options, etc. But getting that actual XML service onto that brand new phone is the key thing you need to do. Ideally, the simplest thing to do is using auto registration with an idle URL. But to do that, you need to use a universal device template, and that was introduced in version 10 and above of Communication Manager. So that's a prerequisite for that particular combination. But as I say, there's other ways to do it. If you're on an older UCM version still, you can still use auto registration, but you would typically use something like an enterprise phone service to get that out there. And you need to manually initiate opening up that service, obviously, as part of it. If for whatever reason you cannot or do not want to use auto registration, then you would do a BAT import of the new handsets. But the key thing is, it's just a basic configuration for those handsets. There's just non-DDI numbers. There's no user or location correlation required for that BAT import. It's just like a dummy device, just getting it online. So that the XML service can open, and it'll get deleted afterwards once it gets migrated anyway. So it's really just a temporary device. Think of it like a manual version of auto registration, where you have to preload the device details first. If I remember correctly, when you get your order information from Cisco, I don't know if it includes it automatically or you have to request it, but you can get a list of all the MAC addresses that were in that phone shipment. You don't have to scan them in specifically. There's a way to get that. I don't know how to do it because I've not had to do it myself, thankfully, but we do know it is available. So you don't have to scan MAC addresses in, actually, just do it all from that data feed. Okay, so here's a brief rundown on what the actual XML service on the phone looks like. So just going to give you two examples. The first one is zero touch. So you ship out those new phones out to the site. Again, there's no need to correlate which phone goes where, etc. That's all going to get figured out at the point of migration. So either the end user, the flow walker, swaps the phone over, and the screenshots on the right hand side, kind of top to bottom, is what they would see. So the first thing it typically appears is a topology update notification. So that's a brief little period of time, usually about 10 seconds or so, that it just waits there. It does a little query in our system just to identify that old phone automatically, if it can, right? Sometimes it can't, but if it can, that's the step where it tries to find it. Now, assuming that it did find it, assuming it did find it automatically, using the topology data, then the second screenshot there, the one in the middle, that shows you what the user would see. They'd have confirmation of the device MAC address and the extension number, and they have the choice to continue or not at that point in time. Assuming that they say yes, then the third screenshot is what they would see, and that just confirms they've accepted the request. It's currently migration in process, and it's just going to tell it to wait for a little minute for the phone to reboot effectively with its new configuration. If you want to, you can actually skip that second screen, the confirmation step. There's a feature that we added again on request of Cisco, which is called the confirmation whitelist. It's a regular expression, and you can put one or more IP address ranges as part of that. And if the new handset that you plug in, if its IP address matches that confirmation whitelist, it will just skip that second screenshot, which means there's no confirmation required, and you'll see the topology screenshot first for about 10, 20 seconds or so, and then it'll immediately start migrating. Just it'll show you that that page that's in progress, and the phone will reboot. So it literally is zero touch when you use that confirmation whitelist. It's the only thing you have to do is physically plug that cable into the phone. If there is no topology data, for example, the phone's web server is disabled or offline or something like that, then we automatically fall back to search by extension by default, but you can also change it to go to self-service mode, so you can choose which way it wants to fall back, but the way we set it by default is to search by extension, and I'll just show you how that works. So assuming that we cannot do zero touch, then the next logical steps that the user is presented with is they're asked for the extension number of their old phone. Now, technically they can do a partial match if they want, but obviously you want to make sure they type in all the right digits, etc. You can actually enforce a minimum number of digits that they have to type in, so that kind of prompts people with consistent dial plans to type in enough numbers. If for any reason there's multiple matches, which might be things like shared lines, etc., then the second screenshot in the list there, where it says select device, it will present the user with a list of choices. That list is actually quite a clever list. We put a bit of thought into how it was ordered, and typically the phone at the top is most likely the device they're looking for. The reason being it's based on things like button position. So the higher up the phone button is, where that extension appears, the higher up this list it's going to be. So most of the time, if it's your own personal phone and not a shared line, it's going to be the first line on the phone, etc. If you share a line with someone else, it's usually going to be further down your phone if it's not your primary number, basically. So most times, as I say, it's high up in that list anyway. If there's multiple matches, it's only if that's the case. If there's only one match, it just goes straight to the third screenshot there. And again, as you might recognise, that's just that confirmation page, and they just need to say yes to continue. Okay, so that's kind of how it works from an end user's perspective. And by default, we just copy everything over as kind of effectively as we can. We've got some naming conventions that we follow, and we document that how we kind of convert button templates over and all these kind of good things. But because of clients that were using the software and some of the more complex scenarios that we're working with, we needed to find a way to make the life a little bit easier as part of this. So we came up with this concept of migration profiles. And there's a number of things that this allows you to do. It's technically completely optional. It's not mandatory. You don't have to set these up at all. But if you want to do certain things like sidecars and consolidated button templates, then you would need to start using migration profiles to set things up and control things accordingly. But effectively, it allows you to map a phone template. And I'm talking about a bulk admin tool phone template on Communication Manager. You can dynamically map that with the phone that you're swapping over. And then if you want to, you can copy specific fields from the phone template instead of copying it from the old phone. So it's like a three-way merge kind of thing, and you can choose which fields to kind of merge over. And believe it or not, that allows you to do quite a lot of things. So consolidated button templates, maybe you're reducing the number of speed dials or something, a particular layout. You can, go from one template type to another, which that configuration, as I talked on already, you can take care of the sidecar configuration that can come from the bulk admin tool phone template. Because obviously, if you swap an old phone for a new phone, the old phone sidecars, like 1714, that model definition, we don't know what that's going to be on the new phone, because there's a lot of different sidecars out there, and they might only have one sidecar and previously had two and all this kind of stuff. So the new information about the new sidecars goes in the bulk admin tool phone template, and this is how you can map that in dynamically. And again, as I touched on a little bit earlier in those scenarios, if you want to move phones between sites and change things like device profiles, device pools, and device CSS, etc., migration profiles are exactly how that's done. Okay, a little thing that's just quite handy is we actually did a little bit of an enhancement on the kind of troubleshooting side of things. We've had this quite a long time actually, a migration history page, so you can kind of see all the migrations that have happened on the system, and you look into detail into each individual logging steps that happened as part of those migrations, so you can drill in quite handily. It's obviously available as a file, raw data as well, but this is quite a handy user interface just to inspect what's going on. But the enhancement that we did is we took that kind of per device log information and we actually presented it on the phone as well. So if our phone migrates or attempts to migrate and something goes wrong along the way, then the actual XML service on the phone will automatically display that error log for you. So even as an engineer, if you're doing it in testing, you find an issue, you can see if there's any useful information in there to tell you what to fix and change, and then you can restart the migration as well. So this makes it quite handy to troubleshoot what's happening. Okay, so this is the new functionality. So this is for migrating device profiles. So just to be clear, this is the extensibility device profile, which obviously when you create these things, they're model specific. And I know that can cause a little bit of challenge for a lot of historical phone configurations where it's maybe got a particular, older phone model configuration for those device profiles. And even though the physical phone might be migrated on a new model, the old profile is still on it, and that can sometimes kind of muck things up a little bit about button positions and stuff like that. So this request has come up a few times in the past, so we've managed to incorporate it. And basically, we're going to enhance this a little bit more for some other scenarios, but basically the way it works currently is if a user is currently logged into the phone, and basically they need to be logged in for this to engage, and the phone gets swapped out, you initiate the migration, then we have everything we need at that point information-wise, and that's what we leverage. So if it's there already, we will also convert the device profile along with the physical phone over. And the great thing is, because we know the new phone and its model at that point in time, obviously, we use that. So that's the target model that we convert the device profile over to as well. But what we're also planning is to provide a standalone way to migrate device profiles. Even if you've already migrated your physical phones previously or through other means, etc., but you've still got these kind of old device profiles with old models on them and you want to convert them over, we're going to try and find a way to expose just that part of the operation separately so that you can kind of go up and clean and convert those things as well. Now, mechanically, that's a little bit of detail on the steps it performs. So we've got an extra setting that we've added called migrate device profile. And if that's enabled, after the main steps of migrating the physical phone configuration, all the user data and all that kind of stuff that goes with it, once all that's successfully completed, we then engage these steps, which then basically, as you can see, they rename the old device profile. We basically append _migrated on the end there to identify it. We then convert that over to a new copy of the device profile with the new model configuration on it. So that copies all the speed dial services and things like that, as you would expect. We then update the associations with that user. We also set this new device profile as their default. We then, using the extensibility API, we then log out that old device profile from the phone, because technically it will actually be logged into the new phone, believe it or not. Then we log in the new device profile again onto that new phone. And optionally, we can also delete the old device profile as well. So one of the other settings in MigrationFX is the ability to delete the old phone. It's off by default, but it's an option you can turn on. If you're deleting the old physical phone and that's turned on, we'll automatically delete the old device profile as well. Now, we might change and add some other options and settings in relating to that, but that's our first pass on it. So in terms of things that were coming up imminently and a bit more longer term that are in the pipeline for MigrationFX that would be worth sharing is in not too distant future, months away, and not tens of months, just single digit months. We expect to be able to have some form of standalone mechanism, as I was describing a minute ago, so you can convert those out with the actual physical phone migration. But one key thing I'm quite looking forward to adding is the soft phone migration. So if you've ever used our software, we used to only be a hard phone company, but with the release of PhoneView version 7, we now incorporate a whole bunch of stuff that we can do with soft phones as well. And obviously, given the budgets people are going to have to find to swap their old phones for new, I think there's going to be a fair percentage of people that are going to choose to go down the soft phone path, not for all their phones and all the users, but certainly a percentage of them. We'll see how that kind of turns out. So it's kind of in everybody's interest, and certainly ours to keep up with everybody, that we can incorporate soft phone interactions more than we have done in the past. So a lot of focus on that. So in this case, that means you'll be able to convert, between soft phones, like IP communicator to Java, for example, or from a physical phone to Java. So that's something we're working on this year. Something that will probably, well, it's not really committed to effort-wise, but we're keeping a tag on it, is migrating phones between clusters. That comes up a lot, to be honest, and we never really get time to work on it. But we've it's not forgotten, but you know, it's quite a tricky exercise, but it's something that we're kind of keeping in mind. However, one thing that's, although it's tagged as long term, it's something I think we'll try and work on a bit sooner than that. But we'll actually come up with quite a nice concept of an end user kind of wizard portal, just a web page with a little couple of steps you go through that could allow you to migrate from a desk phone to a Jabber instance. So imagine an end user who, you know, currently or previously had a physical Cisco phone on their desk, and they've got the laptop, their PC, or whatever it is, and they don't have Jabber installed at all. Maybe they log into a web page using their communication manager credentials or the AD password if that's set up, and then we just basically, through 2 or 3 choices, as simple and effective as we can make it, there will be a Jabber device running on their PC with the exact same configuration as their desk phone, and then once they've completed that process, they can give away their desk phone, return it, and they can get destroyed or whatever they're going to do with it. So we've got a plan I've got an idea on how we can do that. So it's a self-service portal for getting people to move over to Jabber. As I say, we think this Communication Manager 14 is going to drive a lot of choice, or it's going to require a lot of choices for people to make about what they're going to do about their old phones. And you know, we can't exclude the fact that they're probably going to go to Jabber for a few people. On that point, if you're not aware, this is quite new information. With the release of Communication Manager 14, there is some phone deprecation. Now, for anybody who's keeping an eye on this, since version 11.5, Cisco started retiring handset support, and they update that a little bit in version 12, obviously, but there's quite a big jump happening in version 14. Now, that's 14 is not slated for 2020, I believe, so got a bit of time to obviously get things converted over, but you obviously have to convert your phones before you go to 14, because if you've still got one of those models alive on your system and then you run it and then you try to run them on 14, they'll just be offline. So you have to unfortunately get them swapped out before you can go to 14. So it's a bit of a stepping stone. I'm nearly kind of ready to hand over to our friends at Cisco, but I'm just going to repost some of those links into the chat window just so they're fresh. So if you check the chat window out, I've got that URL, for example, for that field notice. Now, from a demo point of view, that zero touch demo is quite a nice one, but I've actually got a new demo, which I'm just going to show you. Fingers crossed. This is the first time I've tried doing a demo this way. I've got a little embedded video in the slide deck here, and it's got no audio, so I'm just going to talk over it. It's just 2 minutes long, and let me just play it and then tell you what's happening. So we have an old phone, 7961, and it has a user, Joe Bloggs, logged in using Extension Mobility at the moment. Hopefully you can see they had a few devices, a few button configurations there, some BLF, speed dials, an XML service, that kind of idea. And all we did was unplug the cable from that old phone, obviously, plug the same cable into this new 8800 series handset. They've got a nice upgrade with a video enabled phone. That's lovely. It's nicely sped up at the moment, so we wouldn't normally boot this quickly, obviously. But you can see the phone's coming online. It's registered with different extensions. It's just using auto registration in this case. So it's 10177, just an anonymous phone at this point in time. And then what's going to kick in any moment now is the idle URL. There we are. So this is the bit where it does that topology check. So it's just going to take 10 seconds or so and try and find the old phone automatically. So we can now see it's found the MAC address and extension number for that old handset. So the user just presses yes to confirm that. They then get prompted to say, yep, we've accepted that and we're doing our job. We're going to migrate that phone for you. And you just need to wait for the phone to reset. Now, not that it's in this video or very obvious in this video, but this is a user with an extensibility device profile logged in, and the previous device profile was the 7961, and you can see now it's coming back online with Joe Bloggs, and it's the new device profile with the new model. You can see the lines wrap over with extended line mode. You can see it's, even though it's 6 buttons, it's now wrapped over to the right hand side, and it's all good to go. Okay, that was it from a demo point of view. Let's see if I can figure out how to move my slide forward. There we are. So for people to be able to evaluate and test the software, we make it available in a lab format. That allows it to work with up to 50 phones. That's just something you can download anytime you want. We'll give you a license key, it lasts for a year, and you can play around with it. A lot of people, ironically, don't quite believe that us when we tell them it's that easy. It's taken a lot of convincing of some people sometimes, and the best way to convince somebody is for them to do it themselves, obviously. In fact, just on that point, I think, yeah, or I forget the exact number, but our largest client now, a large bank in America, has something like, well, has a license from us anyway for 400,000 phones. I can't remember the exact number, if it was like 160,000 phones they're going to swap this year, but you know, it's certainly a huge estate with lots and lots of clusters, super clusters in the mix, etc. And they've been working on that. They've been actively using MigrationFX for about 3 months now, churning their way through those new handsets. So, but obviously, to start off with, they didn't believe us either. So they used the kind of free lab software just to prove it in their own test lab environment. And then once they were comfortable with it and proving it all out, then they moved forward, obviously. Okay, so that's a lot of information on the Migration Incentive Program. It's available for free as long as you do a phone order on the MIP program and sharing 100 phones. But what I'm going to do at this point in time, although it might take me a wee second to figure out how, is I'm going to stop sharing. Okay, Mandy, you've got the ball. If you get any slides you want to share or just want to talk us through things, that'd be great.
Oh, that's perfect. Thank you. Hopefully everything shows. So thank you. My name is Mandeep, and together with Padma, we're going to go through the Collaboration Migration Incentive Program, which covers how you can get the MigrationFX software for free. First of all, I'm just going to quickly go through what is MIP. So Migration Incentive Program for Collaboration, it's simple. It's a promotion for partners that allows you to return the old equipment like the endpoints and then replace them with our new solution for endpoints. And in order to be eligible, it's open to all Cisco registered partners. You just have to have good standing with return requirements. So what you need to do is make sure that you return the old equipment, and Cisco makes it very easy for you to do that. As long as you make those requirements and follow them, then you're compliant with the program. In order to enroll yourself in the program, you just have to log into the PPE Partner Program Enrollment and make sure that you're registered for MIP. And we've actually made it more simple now, where it's under one incentive for multiple programs and promotions, where it's Channel Program Incentive Agreement. Now, the framework of the way the Migration Incentive Program is, you have two flavors. One is if you're doing a Cisco to Cisco migration. So that covers if you have old endpoints that you're migrating to new ones, or if you're doing a competitive displacement, right? If you have competitive phones that you want to displace. And just to give you an overview in terms of how it works for discounts, we offer up to 65%, which is our standard collaboration offer, which stacks on top of the MIP offer. That's our collaboration offer for our voice, video endpoints, and servers. And then for Cisco to Cisco migration, so to give you an example, on the right where it's in blue, if you're migrating from an older voice endpoint such as the 79XX, 89XX, and going to our IP phones that are 7841 or 7861s, we'll give you up to 75% discount. Now, this stacks with your hunting, teaming, and your MIP base, but that's the maximum discount that we can offer. Otherwise, the standard collaboration offer is 65%. Just in terms of how do you register the deals in MIP, now this is going to be important. Once you've actually enrolled in PPE, you will see that show up in your CCW as an incentive where it says migration. So again, the two flavors show up here, where it's either a Cisco migration or competitive. Once you've done that, we just simply ask you some simple questions about what are you migrating to and migrating from, and what are your quantities. And once you've done that, that will basically register the deal. And then as part of a requirement is as you're returning the old equipment, we need to log what is being returned. So you just need to simply enter what the trade-in items are that are being returned. And this process is actually going to be simplified in the next few months coming up. So look out for that. But for now, we just require you to enter the trade-in items. Now, this is the part that I want to cover, which is how do you get the MigrationFX software for free? So if you register your deal with the Migration Center program and you're purchasing over 100 new phones with the Migration Center program, all you have to do is include the free migration SKU, which is the LCP MGF and point number 2, FX-promo, and you only need to enter that quantity as 1, okay, in the same order of the 100 phones. And once that is recognized, what we do is when the order is fulfilled, we actually check to make sure that it's compliant, and then that pack or software gets released to you. But the big thing that we want to call out is you have to register the deal as Migration Center program. There's no, if you're doing it outside of the program, then it doesn't come for free. Okay. With that being said, we can definitely share the slides after. If you have additional information or resources, we have our mailer that asks collaboration promotions at cisco.com. We also have a site that is comprehensive, which covers all the Migration Center programs of rules and regulations, as well as the trade-in return information. So such as like, how long do I have to return the equipment once the order is fulfilled? The answer is up to 6 months. But again, all this information is available here. With that being said, we also have just at the back end slides just what voice endpoints and video endpoints queue lists are. So this is part of it's available on our website, and it will be part of the kit that that's available after. Great, thank you.
That's great. Thanks a lot for that, Mandeep. Okay, I think that's largely us. So just thought of the time for any questions. I can see, yeah, I think most of them have been answered. Last couple just in there. I'll maybe just talk through some of them in case anybody's missed them. But basically, in case of a phone model migration, does MigrationFX support the change of the device profile model type? So yes, it does. So that's the new capability. Doesn't in the current release that you download from our website. You need to email sales@unifiedfx.com and we'll give you access to the latest release that has that new capability. Yep, the video and the presentation will be available in the future. You can email sales@unifiedfx.com. You're asking if the old phone will be removed. By default, MigrationFX will keep the old phone in Communication Manager, but there's a setting you can enable, and if you turn that setting on, it will immediately delete instead. So a lot of people kind of keep the old phone to start with in the first few migrations that they do, and then once they're kind of comfortable with it, they then maybe turn that feature on so they can just start deleting immediately. But there is a setting you can enable that will tag the old phone with the word migrated, so it makes them quite easy to find yourself and delete them wherever you want. Good question here. I was touching on this a little bit earlier. If you migrate a phone that's associated with a UCCX JTAP user, does it automatically associate the new phone to the UCCX JTAP user? Yes, it does. It actually maintains all application and end user association. So if the old phone was associated with the RNTM user, whatever it's called, that UCCX uses, then the new phone will also be associated with it as well. So all that kind of works seamlessly. Can MigrationFX be used to move phones between clusters? Not yet, but it is something that we're very interested in doing because it comes up quite a lot, to be fair, and we know it adds value. So we'll hopefully get around to it, but as I say, we're not committed to it yet. It's a good question. I'm not going to type in the answer to this one because it's a bit longer, but it's a good question though. What happens if there is a feature discrepancy between the old and new model? Will MigrationFX fail to migrate, or will it migrate as many features as it can? So it will not fail. So MigrationFX will continue, but the way we handle discrepancies is, try and describe this. So if you think about it this way, we're kind of like creating a brand new device. And if you have like a skinny phone, SCCP device that was being migrated to a SIP device, there's obviously some fields that are common to both those devices and some that are not. The fields that are common will obviously get copied over, but the fields that are not will basically be defaulted to whatever, you know, the initial value is when you create a new phone. So that means that things like, if you don't do anything about this, and you can sort it out, by default, you would just reset and have a default SIP profile, for example, right? So it doesn't mean your phone wouldn't necessarily be configured and be available. It might just not work exactly the way you want it to if you don't take steps to correct that. And to correct that, that's where the migration profile capability comes in. With a migration profile, what you can actually do is specify a bulk admin tool phone template of the new model type. And then if there's a discrepancy, as in a setting or a feature or something that doesn't exist in the old phone, but the new phone needs, it gets it from the phone template instead. So that fills in the gaps effectively. So it's quite a complex thing to convert phones because there's a lot of settings in there. And obviously, if you've got those differences as you're asking about, but we fill in those gaps from the phone template. Now we actually create a phone template dynamically if you do not create one up ahead of time, because it kind of has to exist mechanically for it to work. But by default, we create one and then we discard it automatically. But by kind of doing a little bit of preparation on your side, if you create that phone template, use the migration profile to associate it accordingly, then that phone template will basically fill in the gaps for you from a feature point of view. But the key thing is it won't fail the migration, but it might mean that the device configuration has everything you would expect on it without using that migration profile feature.